Let's start it without first news. Alex Pereira has once again found himself at the center of the MMA spotlight, this time firing back at heavyweight star Tom Aspinall's recent comments. Earlier this week, Aspinall suggested that Pereira has benefited from favorable matchmaking throughout his UFC career. According to Aspinall, the Brazilian star, who rose quickly through the middleweight and light heavyweight divisions, did not face a truly talented grappler until his title defense against Magomed Ankalaev. The comments stirred up conversation across the MMA community, with many questioning whether Pereira's rise was carefully managed or simply the result of his exceptional striking ability and rapid development. Ahead of this weekend's UFC 320 card, Pereira responded during his media day appearance, brushing off the criticism with confidence. "I'm a guy who comes from kickboxing," Pereira explained. "I had no grappling experience when I entered this sport. We're talking about the highest level of MMA here. Even if you put me against the so-called worst grappler in the UFC, I'd still be at a disadvantage because of my background. To say I've been protected or handed easy matchups makes no sense. Every fight I've taken has been against tough competition, and I've proven myself against some of the very best in the world." This was not the first time Pereira had pushed back against criticism this week. He also addressed remarks made by Ankalaev's coach, who had labeled him a slow kickboxer. Pereira, never one to shy away from confrontation, dismissed the insult, pointing out that his striking style has been effective at the highest levels of both kickboxing and MMA. In response, Ankalaev stood firmly by his coach's assessment during his own media day interview. "If my coach said it, then yes, I agree with it," Ankalaev said. "We're going to prove it in the fight. This isn't just talk. Saturday night will show everyone who is right." The tension between the two fighters has only escalated in recent weeks. Ankalaev revealed more details about his personal bad blood with Pereira, stemming from an interview in which Pereira allegedly suggested that Ankalaev had avoided him out of fear. Ankalaev took great offense to that claim, saying it was completely untrue. "My bad blood towards him started when I saw that interview," Ankalaev recalled. "He said I was hiding from him, that I was scared. That made me really mad. Then, one day at the UFC Performance Institute, I ran into him. I confronted him directly. I told him, 'You were looking for me? You thought I was hiding? Well, here I am. Don't say things that aren't true.' That's when this rivalry really started." Now, with the rematch only days away, the stakes could not be higher. The MMA world is buzzing with anticipation, and fans remain divided in their predictions. Pereira's lethal striking and proven championship pedigree make him a dangerous opponent for anyone, but Ankalaev's grappling heavy style and unshakable confidence promise a stern test. Both fighters have plenty to prove, not only to each other, but to the fans and critics who continue to question their legacies. On Saturday night at UFC 320, the war of words will finally give way to action inside the octagon, where only one man will emerge victorious. Before moving on to the next news, we have a quick request for you. We're always working to improve our content and truly value your support. If you could take a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon, it would mean a lot to us. That way, you'll never miss an update. Move on to another news. Dan Hooker has issued a forceful reaction to the news that he may face Arman Tsarukyan, and his comments have already stirred conversation across the MMA community. Following a major announcement from UFC President Dana White revealing the main and co-main events for the upcoming card, Hooker reacted publicly on social media with an aggressive message, "I'll cave his head in." Later, in a sit-down with Submission Radio, he expanded on that sentiment and made it clear he expects the rivalry to be anything but cordial. Hooker told Submission Radio that if Tsarukyan enters his striking range, he plans to capitalize immediately. "If he comes into arm's range of me, I'm going to hit him," Hooker said, emphasizing that once physical contact is possible, the situation will escalate quickly. "If you put me near the guy, the fight's off," he explained, suggesting that any proximity could trigger a brawl rather than a measured contest. Hooker added that he intends to use deliberate strikes to provoke a reaction. "I'm going to try to hit him and throw at him and piss him off," an uncompromising statement that underlines both strategy and intent. The fighter credited Submission Radio for getting interviews out quickly, praising the platform for its timeliness and reach. Hooker's media presence has been blunt and unfiltered, and his comments underline a willingness to engage in psychological warfare as much as physical confrontation. He also indicated that the UFC has an interest in making the matchup happen, and that the promotion will need to take steps to prevent pre-fight confrontations. "The UFC wants this fight to happen, so it's on them to keep us away from each other," he said, placing responsibility for security squarely on the promotion. Hooker's remarks did not stop at tactical technical commentary. He made personal remarks about Tsarukyan, stating a visceral dislike that he acknowledged was not based on deep familiarity. "I absolutely hate him," he admitted, "even though I don't know anything about him." That blunt confession was followed by a string of provocative lines intended to unsettle his prospective opponent and draw attention. "I don't like his face. I don't like that his face is attached to his body, and I would love to separate the two." The hyperbolic language was clearly designed to stoke emotion and generate headlines, an old-school trash talk technique with modern media payoff. He closed his interview with a graphic combative quip indicating eagerness for physical engagement. "Can't wait to elbow him in the nose," Hooker declared, summarizing the combative posture he plans to bring to any encounter. As the dust settles on Hooker's comments, the coming weeks will determine whether the matchup advances beyond social media rhetoric. If the UFC proceeds with the pairing, officials will likely intensify security and manage media interactions carefully to avoid flare-ups before fight night. For fans, Hooker's words add an element of personal animus to an otherwise sporting matchup, elevating expectations for a fiery confrontation inside the octagon. Both camps should expect tensions to rise, and fight week protocols may be further tightened to keep the fighters apart until fight night. Move on to another news. Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship (BKFC) President David Feldman has revealed that Nate Diaz recently turned down an opportunity to compete under the BKFC banner, citing concerns about his long-term health. Feldman made the disclosure during an appearance on The Ariel Helwani Show, where he explained that the promotion had reached out to Diaz with serious interest in signing him, but the Stockton star ultimately declined. According to Feldman, Diaz was upfront about his reasoning. "We've talked to Nate Diaz a few times," Feldman said. "He literally told us, 'Look, I have too much scar tissue for this right now.'" Diaz, who has built a reputation as one of MMA's most durable and battle-tested athletes, has accumulated significant scar tissue throughout his career. Known for being involved in some of the bloodiest and most memorable fights in UFC history, Diaz has long dealt with cuts opening quickly during bouts, an issue that could be dramatically amplified in bare-knuckle competition where gloves are absent. Despite Diaz's hesitancy, Feldman suggested that there might still be one scenario where the fan favorite would consider entering the BKFC ring, a fight against his longtime rival, Conor McGregor. "I think if it were Conor McGregor on the other side of that ring, he would take it," Feldman remarked. The two fighters share one of the most storied rivalries in UFC history, with Diaz handing McGregor his first UFC loss in 2016 before McGregor avenged it later that same year. A trilogy fight between the two has been discussed for years, and the mere suggestion of a potential showdown in the brutal world of bare-knuckle fighting has sparked considerable debate among fans. For Diaz, the refusal highlights a careful balancing act between fan demand and personal well-being, while his warrior spirit and willingness to take on dangerous challenges have made him a cult icon. The realities of his scar tissue and the risks of fighting without gloves may outweigh the potential payoff, unless the matchup is big enough to justify it. McGregor, with his global appeal and history with Diaz, may be the only opponent who fits that bill. The idea of Diaz and McGregor meeting in a bare-knuckle contest is both tantalizing and alarming. On one hand, it would undoubtedly be one of the biggest events in BKFC history, possibly even drawing mainstream attention to the promotion in a way no other matchup could. On the other hand, the brutal nature of the sport, combined with both fighters' histories of cuts and injuries, raises serious concerns about long-term health consequences. For now, Diaz seems content to stay away from bare-knuckle competition, focusing instead on recovering from his most recent ventures and keeping his options open in combat sports. Yet Feldman's comments suggest that the door isn't fully closed. If the right opportunity, namely, a third fight with McGregor, were to present itself, Diaz might be willing to reconsider. The question remains, would fans want to see Diaz and McGregor risk it all once again, this time in one of the most unforgiving combat sports arenas? Feldman thinks the spectacle would be unforgettable. "That'd be pretty sick," he concluded, and judging by the reaction of fight fans, he might be right. Move on to another news. Conor McGregor has once again taken center stage in the MMA world with bold claims that his long-rumored fight at the UFC White House event is officially signed. The Irish superstar, who has been teasing his comeback for months, made the announcement during a surprise appearance on Fox News with anchor Sean Hannity, after pulling out of a previously scheduled interview on The Ariel Helwani Show at the last minute for undisclosed reasons. McGregor told Hannity that the deal for the historic White House event is already finalized. When asked directly if the contract was complete, McGregor responded with absolute certainty, "Is this a done deal? Signed? Delivered? It ain't a negotiation, it's a done deal, signed, delivered, he said, stressing that fans can consider his return official. According to McGregor, the fight will take place as part of a massive UFC card marking America's 250th celebration, and he intends to make it his own event. McGregor added that his long-standing relationship with UFC President Dana White continues to thrive, and that the two remain in constant communication. "Me and Dana are in constant talks," he explained. "We've done incredible business together. I'm the highest generating fighter of all time in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. They've just signed a breathtaking deal with Paramount to bring UFC to cable television, $7.7 billion. And we're ready to rock, baby. Bring in the big dog, the Mac G." Beyond the business side, McGregor revealed that he is taking the preparation for this fight more seriously than ever. He described it as a 6-month operation of isolation and focus, a period during which he intends to cut off distractions entirely. "I have 8 months and change until the White House event," McGregor said. "It's a 6-month operation to get ready for this bout. I'll be isolating myself, no phone calls, no interruptions. Everyone around me knows what's coming. I'm under no illusion of the effort required. The phone will be switched off and the work will be executed. That's my only focus." McGregor's comments suggested that he remains highly motivated after his last UFC appearance, which ended in disappointment following an injury. He emphasized that he was in excellent condition at the time and that a momentary lapse in focus changed the outcome. This time, he plans to correct that and remind fans of what he is capable of. "There's a lot at stake, and I'm very excited at the opportunity. I was right there in my last fight, in incredible condition. Just a slight lapse led to an injury. I want to correct that and show the world what I'm about." While McGregor spoke with confidence, his announcement leaves room for skepticism. Neither Dana White nor the UFC has officially confirmed the White House fight, despite having recently unveiled multiple bouts for upcoming cards. Some observers believe McGregor may be exaggerating or attempting to build hype ahead of an eventual announcement. Nevertheless, his claims have sparked widespread discussion, particularly with Michael Chandler, his expected opponent, surely encouraged by McGregor's words. For now, fans are left to wonder whether McGregor's declaration is fact or bravado. If true, UFC history could be made with the sport's biggest star headlining at one of the most iconic venues in America. As always with McGregor, time will tell if his words translate into reality inside the octagon. Move on to another news. The UFC has handed down a suspension to flyweight contender Ramazan Tamarov after the fighter tested positive for a banned substance in multiple out-of-competition drug screenings. UFC President Dana White confirmed the news this week, revealing that Tamarov will serve a 12-month suspension following violations tied to the use of trimetazidine, commonly referred to as TMZ, a substance prohibited under the UFC's anti-doping program. According to the official statement from Combat Sports Anti-Doping (CSAD), which was relayed through MMA Junkie, Tamarov failed 2 separate tests earlier this summer. Samples collected on June 12 and July 4 both came back positive for TMZ. The medication, while primarily prescribed to patients with heart conditions, has also been associated with increased endurance levels, raising red flags in the context of professional sports. Interestingly, CSAD noted that the amount of TMZ detected in Tamarov's system was not believed to provide a significant performance-enhancing effect. Instead, the situation appears to stem from a lack of due diligence. The anti-doping agency reported that Tamarov had been prescribed the drug by a doctor but failed to confirm whether it was permissible under UFC regulations. Such oversights, however unintentional, still result in penalties under the UFC's strict testing program. The consequences were immediate. Just days after the July 4 test came back positive, Tamarov was removed from his scheduled fight at UFC Abu Dhabi on July 8. The setback derailed momentum for the undefeated flyweight, who had begun to make waves in the division. In an effort to clarify the circumstances, Tamarov released a video statement on social media. In it, he explained that he had been training in Thailand earlier in the year when he developed multiple infections and skin wounds. Seeking medical treatment, he was prescribed TMZ by a dermatologist to address the issue. Tamarov emphasized that there was no intention to cheat or gain an advantage but admitted that he should have verified the medication with UFC's testing authorities before using it. Despite the mitigating factors, the suspension stands. The 12-month ban has been applied retroactively to align with his July test date, meaning Tamarov will be eligible to return to competition on July 5, 2026. While this provides a clear timeline for his comeback, it also places his career progression on hold at a critical moment. Tamarov entered the UFC with significant promise and quickly built an undefeated record inside the octagon. He debuted at UFC Fight Night 244, securing a first-round finish over CJ Vergara, before following up with a hard-fought decision victory against Charles Johnson at UFC Fight Night 253. Those performances highlighted his potential as a rising force in the flyweight division. The suspension serves as a stark reminder of the importance of compliance with anti-doping regulations, even in cases involving prescribed medications. For Tamarov, the year-long setback will test his resilience and determination to return stronger. Meanwhile, the UFC and Dana White continue to reinforce their no-tolerance policy on prohibited substances, underscoring the promotion's commitment to fairness and integrity in competition. Fans will now have to wait until mid-2026 to see whether Tamarov can pick up where he left off and continue his ascent in the flyweight ranks. Until then, his story stands as both a cautionary tale and a reflection of the strict standards governing athletes in the modern UFC. Move on to another news. Robert Whittaker, the former UFC middleweight champion, has made his stance clear. He believes Carlos Ulberg has done enough to earn the next shot at the UFC light heavyweight title. Speaking on his MMA Arcade podcast, Whittaker broke down why Ulberg's recent run of success, and his emphatic knockout victory over Dominic Reyes, puts him at the front of the contender line. Leading into last weekend's UFC Fight Night card in Perth, much of the focus was on two pivotal light heavyweight matchups, Dominic Reyes vs Carlos Ulberg, and Jiří Procházka vs Khalil Rountree. These fights were widely expected to shape the immediate future of the 205-pound division and help determine who would challenge for the championship next. Ulberg, riding an impressive winning streak, delivered in dramatic fashion by stopping Reyes with a decisive knockout. That win not only extended his streak to 9 consecutive victories but also catapulted him into the number 3 spot in the UFC's official light heavyweight rankings. With Procházka ranked 2nd and Rountree positioned 4th, the spotlight now turns to Saturday's Procházka vs Rountree clash. Despite the anticipation surrounding that fight, Whittaker argued that Ulberg's momentum and consistency should not be overlooked. In his view, the New Zealand fighter has already solidified himself as the logical next challenger for the belt. After 9 straight wins, Ulberg deserves the crack at the title, Whittaker said. Unless something truly spectacular happens in the Procházka vs Rountree fight, something so wild that it's impossible to ignore, Ulberg should be next in line. Whittaker even injected some humor into his argument, joking that unless Jiří Procházka does a triple backflip onto Rountree's head, it would be difficult to justify skipping over Ulberg for the next title shot. While the comment was tongue-in-cheek, it underscored Whittaker's point. Barring something extraordinary, Ulberg's resume and recent dominance make him the clear-cut number 1 contender. Ulberg's rise has been remarkable. Known early in his UFC career as a powerful striker but sometimes inconsistent performer, he has since transformed into one of the most dangerous and reliable competitors in the division. His knockout power, technical improvements, and growing composure in high-pressure moments have made him a standout. With Reyes being a former title challenger and once considered one of the best light heavyweights in the world, Ulberg's victory over him adds legitimacy to his case. Now, the UFC faces a compelling decision. If Procházka, a former champion with a reputation for unpredictability, produces another highlight reel performance, or if Rountree delivers a stunning upset, the promotion might be tempted to slot one of them into a title fight. However, as Whittaker emphasizes, rewarding sustained excellence and a long winning streak should matter just as much as one spectacular moment. With the rankings now reflecting Ulberg's surge, and with his name buzzing after the Reyes knockout, the UFC fanbase, and the division itself, may be ready for a fresh title challenger. Whether the UFC agrees with Whittaker's perspective will become clear in the coming weeks, but one thing is certain: Carlos Ulberg has firmly established himself as a legitimate contender in the light heavyweight title picture.